Hey gang, this is Deke McClellan. Welcome to Deke's Techniques. Remember how we've been working with this Falcon and we created a bunch of different wing variations using Puppet Warp, and then we animated the text as well, so it's like we can just hear the darn thing squawk. Well, this week we're going to assemble everything we've done so far into a real true animation file using the timeline panel inside Photoshop, and I swear to you, it's like we're up there in the sky with the critter. It's sitting there flying, and we're like a magical unicorn floating along. Aw, we're so cute. Here, let me show you exactly how it works. All right, here's the file that contains all the layers that we'll need to create our animated movie. The first thing we need to do is rasterize all of the smart objects, because otherwise the Puppet Warp effects will fall apart. And you can do that in Photoshop CS6 and later by clicking on this Filter for Smart Objects icon at the top of the Layers panel. Then go to the Select menu and choose All Layers. And with the rectangular marquee tool, right-click inside the image window and choose Rasterize Smart Object. Now that leaves us with no smart objects, so we're not going to see any layers that match the filter until we turn this icon off. And then you'll see your entire layered composition. Now we don't want to animate something this enormous, so we need to downsample the image. And to do so, go up to the Image menu and choose the Image Size command. And make sure that all three checkboxes are turned on down here in the bottom left corner. Go ahead and set the interpolation to bicubic, best for smooth gradients. That's going to be by far the best solution. And then dial in a width value of 1080 pixels, and that'll give you a height value of 720 pixels, and then click OK. And a few moments later, Photoshop will deliver the smaller version of the file. Now you can go ahead and zoom in on it. Now the next thing to do is to bring up the timeline panel, and you can get to it by clicking on the timeline tab in the lower left corner of the screen. Then click on this down pointing arrowhead and choose Create Frame Animation, and then click on the Create Frame Animation button. And that will go ahead and generate a single frame. Now I've got my frames set to their largest size, which you can do as well by clicking on the flyout menu icon and choosing Panel Options, and then selecting this last option. I'll cancel out though, because I already did that in advance. The next thing to do is once again click on the flyout menu icon and choose Make Frames from Layers. And that will go ahead and create a frame for every single layer in the image. We don't need all of them, however. For example, we don't need a background frame with nothing else on it. So with frame number 1 selected, go ahead and Alt-click or Option-click on the trash can icon. And because you have Alt or Option down, that deletes the frame without producing an alert message. Then scroll all the way to the right, down here in the timeline panel, and click on frame 20 and shift-click on frame 26. So we're selecting the last 7 frames, which contain the talk balloons and the text objects. And then Alt-click or Option-click on the trash icon again. Now we're left with 19 frames that contain just the Falcon. We need to add back in the background. So go to the flyout menu again and choose Select All Frames. And then scroll down the Layers panel to the very bottom and turn on that background layer. And that'll bring back the background for all 19 of these frames. Now I want there to be a little bit of a delay associated with the first and last frames. So click in the bottom right corner of any one of the frames where it says 0 seconds and choose 0.1 second so that we have a 1/10 of a second delay. Then click on frame 18. We want to select all the frames in between the last frame and the first one. So click on frame 18, scroll all the way to the left and shift-click on frame 2 and click on 0.1 second in the bottom right corner of any one of these frames and choose No Delay. Now, if you were to play this movie at this point, you'd see that the bird's wings are going down. We then need them to come back up. So with all of these frames selected here, click on the flyout menu icon and choose Copy Frames. And that'll go ahead and copy all those intermediate frames. Then scroll back over to the right-hand side, click on frame 19, click on the flyout menu icon, and choose Paste Frames. And you want to paste these frames after the selection, so make sure that last option is active, and then click OK. Now, the newly pasted frame should be selected. That is 20 all the way through 36. Now we need to reverse their order by clicking on the flyout menu icon and choosing Reverse Frames. Now that's all there is to the bird, and if you want to watch it, then click on the word Once in the bottom left corner of the screen and choose Forever so that you can loop the animation, and then press the space bar in order to play that animation, and you'll see the wings move continuously up and down. I'm going to press the space bar again in order to pause the animation, and now we need to add in the text, and here's how. Go ahead and scroll back to frame 16 and click on it, and then scroll all the way over to frame 4 and shift-click on it. So frames 4 through 16 should be selected. And my reasoning was we want to leave the text on screen long enough to read it, and then we want to see it explode, and we want it all to happen during the downbeat when the wings are going down. And so that's the first part of the animation. Go ahead and scroll to the top of the Layers panel now, and turn on this Text and Shapes group right there. And if you don't end up seeing anything inside the group, go ahead and turn on the eyeballs. And we actually just want the top text layer and the balloon, so we can turn off these two. And then you want to go ahead and scroll over to the right again and click on frame 15, turn off that text layer, and turn on the modified version of the text right below it. Then click on frame 16 and turn off that top text layer and turn on the second modified version of the text, the one that almost fills up the entire talk balloon. Then scroll further over to the right, click on frame 17 and shift-click on frame 19, the one that has a slight delay associated with it. Go ahead and twirl close that Text and Shapes group if you like, and then turn on the Text Explosion group, twirl it open, and then turn on those layers as well. Now we want to go ahead and fade this text away. So what I'm going to do is click on frame 24, and then turn on that group and turn on its layers once again. And now I'll click on the squawk layer and shift-click on the balloon layer. This is the easiest way to pull this off. And then I want to reduce the opacity value to 0%, which you can do by tapping the 0 key 2 times in a row. And so now we've got opaque text over here in frame 19 and transparent versions of those same layers in frame 24. So go ahead and click on frame 19, shift-click on frame 24 to select that entire range. And then I'm also going to shift-click on the Text Explosion group right there in order to make it part of my selection. Then, in order to tween between these frames, click on the flyout menu icon and choose the Tween command. Inside the Tween dialog box, you want to make sure Tween Width is set to Selection. That indicates the selected frames. Then change Layers to Selected Layers, so we're only tweening these guys here. And the only parameter we need to change is the opacity, so turn off Position and Effects and click OK, and you'll end up creating this effect here. That goes from 100% to 80%, and then to 60, 40, 20, and to 0. Now that change from 20 to 0 is pretty significant. That's a big change there. And that's because Photoshop performs a linear tween. If you want a little bit more of a fade, shift-click on this squawk layer inside the Text Explosion group, shift-click on the balloon layer, and go ahead and tap the 1 key to raise the opacity level to 10%. And that's all there is to it. Now if you press the space bar, you'll see not only the bird fly, but you'll see him say squawk, and then the squawk will explode. And that, friends, is how you create an animated movie, frame by frame, here inside Photoshop. If you're a member of the lynda.com online training library, then I have a follow-up movie in which I show you how to take the animation that you've created so far and export it both as a QuickTime movie and as an animated GIF file. If you're waiting for next week's free movie, I'll show you how to take this lifeless turtle that I captured on the ocean's floor and we'll breathe color into it using an entirely automated color correction function inside Photoshop that everybody hates. Seriously, folks are always besmirching it, and yet it turns this into this. Deeks Techniques each and every week. Keep watching.